March Madness is here. This week, we're taking on college hoops and giving you our biggest picks from the big dance, including our favorite first-round matchups, fraudulent teams, Cinderella hopefuls, and our Final Four predictions. Stay tuned for the Rookie Numbers picks.
Welcome back to the Rookie Numbers Podcast. I'm your host, Bryson Shank. Alongside me are co-hosts, Nathan Wilt, Trent Sunday, and Peter Schaefer. This is episode 5. Let's get to it. So as Nate mentioned, we are taking on college hoops today. This is the one time of year we'll be doing this, just in time for the big dance. So we'll start off this episode with our favorite first round matchups, and Nate, we'll start with you.
My favorite pick this week in terms of matchups is the at-large bid for the Panthers and Mississippi State. I really think this will be a close game. Pitt is a phenomenal offense when it comes to just playing basketball. They've got a lot of guys who can shoot, but they have some trouble on the inside, which is where Mississippi State's going to kill them. Mississippi State is one of the best teams when it comes to rebounding, and Pitt only has a few competent bigs they can play.
Such as Federico.
One of my favorite players. As a Pitt fan, Federico is actually one of my favorite players in the tournament, if they make it. But they're going to have a lot of trouble. Obviously, I'm hoping for them to win, but they're going to get killed on the glass like they did against Duke. They got murdered on the glass against Duke. And against other teams like Miami, they couldn't get rebounds. But Mississippi State's one of the best rebounding teams in the country, and I think they're actually going to struggle quite a lot.
Now, I find that game pretty interesting, too, because I have the winner of that game beating Iowa State.
I do too. I think if it's either if it's Pitt or Mississippi State, I think they have a good chance of beating Iowa State. I think Iowa State really got screwed by the selection committee because I think these are two teams they match up pretty poorly against because these two teams are like water and oil. They are completely different, but they both attack Iowa State's downfall.
Right. And, even looking past Iowa State, if, they make it past Iowa State, they could play Xavier or Kennesaw State. Even Xavier, I think some of those teams could advance.
Yeah. I mean, if Pitt can beat Mississippi State, I don't think there's a big reason why they couldn't beat teams like Iowa State or Xavier.
Right.
I mean, they've got so many different shooters they can go through. They have 4 guys averaging 10+. They have the 6th man of the year for the ACC and the coach of the year for the ACC. I think they could really do good work if they manage to make it past Mississippi State.
Right, and it's rare you see a play-in game like this with Sweet 16 implications.
Oh, for sure. I mean, both these teams just went cold towards the end. I mean, Mississippi State and Pitt were looking like locks before the tournament, and then they just fell a little bit short.
Yep. That one should be a good game. Trent, we'll move on to you. What is your favorite first-round matchup?
So I actually have Florida Atlantic taking on Memphis as my favorite matchup in the first round. If you take a look, Memphis just won the American Conference the other night, taking on Houston. That was a great game. I think I'll get to that a little bit later. But, Memphis, I feel really confident in them right now. They had a great game in that American Conference game. They actually were up big at one point on Houston, who, spoiler alert, I have going deep into the tournament. In terms of Florida Atlantic, big three-point shooting team.
Yeah.
Their three-point field goals, they're averaging about 10 a game, which is 13th in the country. Their three-point field goal percentage, again at 37%, very solid within the top 40. Offensive rebounds and rebounding is going to be huge for them. It's rare to see a team that shoots the ball that well also winning that much on the glass.
Mm-hmm.
You love to see it. Their true shooting percentage at 22nd in the country. I just think it's going to be a great game. I have a feeling Memphis is going to come out on top, but I think overall it'll be a really good game in that first round.
Yeah, very, very high-scoring game there. Memphis just plays so fast. One of the best offenses in the country, too.
And I love the way the game's just going to play out. I mean, Memphis, sometimes their offense is just put up a shot and hope we can get the rebound.
But sometimes it goes in.
Yeah. Sometimes it does.
Sometimes it goes in.
But Florida Atlantic is the complete opposite way. They take their time looking for a good shot, and it's usually a 3.
Yeah.
So if they get hot, they're going to to run Memphis off the court, but Memphis, I mean, they just play the same way. It doesn't matter if they're hot or cold, they're just going to get every rebound.
Yeah, truthfully, I think if Florida Atlantic is playing maybe a different team in that first round, I could see them as like a Cinderella pick for me. I just don't think they can get past Memphis. That's the only thing. I think once they got through there, continuing on to the tournament, I think they could have had a chance to make a little bit of a run, but they would have to beat Memphis to get through. I just don't have them winning that game, unfortunately.
Right.
But
Yeah, I have Memphis going pretty far. I have them winning that game. Should be a good one. I'm definitely tuning into that game. Well, I'll give you guys my pick. I think the Duke Oral Roberts game is going to be one of the best of the tournament. I think Oral Roberts kind of got screwed with their first round matchup. You know, they play any other 5 seed, and most other teams, they're going Sweet 16, possibly farther, as the 12th seed. But I think this can be a very good game between these two teams.
Yeah, I agree. I think the East, actually, I think the winner of this game is, for me, they're the favorite coming out of the East. I think Oral Roberts could do really well. I don't think they can beat Duke, but Duke is my favorite in the East if they can move past Oral Roberts. I would have this game as, if both these teams play the way I think they will, I think this is low-key the championship game of the East.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have Duke going that far. I think I have Oral Roberts winning this game. But for me, in the East, I have Oral Roberts going all the way to the Elite Eight here. I think they're really good this year. I think arguably the best offense in the country overall.
Sure. These are probably 1 and 2 of the hottest teams right now in the tournament, which is crazy because Duke, before they went on their late run, wasn't even projected to make the tournament.
Yeah.
And Oral Roberts has been in a commanding lead of their conference and have been the favorites since about midway through the season. I mean, Oral Roberts is an incredibly good team. I think they could, if they get past Duke, I think they're going to do damage.
I mean, like you were mentioning, both teams, they're getting hot at the right time. I mean, Duke is on a tear. I personally have Duke going extremely far. I think they're going to the semifinal or the
Final Four.
Final Four, yes. Sorry, I was blanking there. But I think they're going to go really far.
No, I agree.
The momentum they're carrying.
I have Duke in my Final Four, too. But if Duke loses this game, I could see Oral Roberts taking their place.
Yeah, I do have keys to the game here for both teams. For Duke, if they slow down Oral Roberts, who has one of the highest paces in the country, they keep it a defensive battle, they win the game. For Oral Roberts, the exact opposite. They speed Duke up. I think they take this one.
Yeah.
So, Peter, we'll move on to you. What is your favorite first-round matchup?
My favorite first-round matchup, especially as a Penn State fan, is Penn State at Texas A&M. I think it's going to be a real good game, for sure. I mean, Penn State, they're really coming around at the right time. 2 points away from possibly sending the Big Ten championship into overtime. Heartbreaking to watch, but, stuff happens. Of course, Texas A&M, they made it the whole way to the SEC championship, but they fell short by a large margin. I think this is really going to be a good game. I think Penn State just barely edges out here. I think they're very similar teams as far as talent and the way they play. Yeah. I think, like I said, the momentum is really with Penn State right now. And Penn State has so many really good offensive weapons. Pickett and Jalen Funk especially are really coming around late in this tournament here.
I'm very excited to watch Pickett.
Pickett's been good for the whole season, but especially right now, he's coming around more.
This game is like an active war zone with how many shooters are going to be on the court at the same time.
Yeah.
It's going to be an incredibly fun game to watch. I think Oral Roberts, Duke, and Penn State, Texas A&M are going to be the most exciting games in the first round, and I think everyone should be tuning into those.
I agree.
Yeah, as much as Penn State's offense frustrates me to watch, I don't think it's fun to watch at all. It's kind of just catch the ball at the 3-point line, dribble, pass again at the 3-point line, and then either backdoor cut or chuck up a contested three.
That's basketball.
That is basketball nowadays.
I will say I was watching every Penn State game, and as far as the Big Ten tournament went on. I watched a few games before in the regular season too, but I agree. I don't love the type of offensive scheme they have rolling, especially when they get cold. When they get cold, teams take advantage of it, and they tend to. The thing mainly is Penn State gets abused in the post, and especially, Edie. He
Oh,
really
yeah.
he
Yeah.
really showed that, last game. And there's not many really players that can stop him in general, but like they were getting, tortured in the paint all season. So they one of their main resorts on offense is shooting and trying to get
Yeah.
points from the 3-point line. And when it's not falling, they can get behind pretty quickly.
Yeah, and that's why I think Penn State fans got to be pretty thankful that they're going to match up with Texas A&M, because they don't really have a dominant inside game, but they play very similarly. I think it's a toss-up. I think it's a coin toss. I'm very excited to watch it.
Yeah, I think that's the fact that Penn State even kept it that close with Purdue, as Peter was saying, really gives me a little more confidence coming into the tournament. I know Penn State, especially Penn State fans, were really up coming into this tournament, and I think after Texas A&M, if they win that game, I think it could get ugly. But I think that if Penn State can continue their momentum that they got going right now, if they can keep those shooters hot, they have a chance to win a few games here.
I agree. Yeah, Penn State, a hot team, and like you guys said, when they're not shooting the ball well, it's pretty bad for them.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, if they're shooting the ball well, that's the
Yeah.
advantage
Oh
of
yeah.
Oh yeah,
being a great 3-point shooting team.
of course.
When you're on, you're beating anybody.
True.
Because 3 is worth more than 2.
This is true.
And if you're hitting your 3s, you're beating anybody.
I have to agree.
So I think with that, we'll move on to our next topic. Every year we see a giant fall. A few years ago, it was number 1 seed Virginia to the great UMBC. one of the greatest upsets in sports history, honestly. That Virginia team was pretty solid. Kyle
Yeah.
Guy, DeAndre Hunter, all them.
Solid team.
And then 2 years ago, the 2 seed Ohio State to Oral Roberts. Last year, Kentucky to St. Peter's, and you can go on and on. So Peter, I'll start with you. Amongst the top 8 teams this year, who is your biggest fraud?
My gut's telling me Purdue. I know Trent's not gonna like this pick, but I got Purdue, right?
I'm with you. I have Purdue as well.
I think
Wow.
you got Edie, right? He's awesome. And when he comes out of the game, like we saw the other day against Penn State, they kind of fall apart. I mean, every time Edie would come out of the game, Penn State would take advantage of it, and at the end, they almost came the whole way back. Another thing, Purdue got a really, really young set of guards, and you want an experienced team going into the big dance. I think that's going to hurt them in the end.
Yeah.
I mean, Purdue, they'll win a few games. I'm not saying they won't, but I don't think Purdue is. They don't live up to a 1 seed. per se.
You have them winning a few games.
I have them winning a few games. Yeah.
How many? Where do you think they go?
Let me check out. my
Just
bracket.
based off the dome. Just based off the dome.
Off
right
the
now.
dome.
What do you think? What are you thinking?
2.
2 games?
Yeah.
I have them winning 1. They beat the
Really?
16 seed, whoever that is, between Texas Southern and Fairleigh Dickinson. But I think Memphis, if they win their game,
Yeah.
which I think they will, I think Memphis beats Purdue in the round of 32.
That's right.
I have to say that's not a great matchup for Purdue. Like,
Yeah, no,
Memphis
it's
is
not.
scary. I don't want
Memphis-
to play Memphis.
Memphis has a lot of size, very great scoring the ball. Again, a high pace, like we
I was
said,
gonna say, they're really
especially
fast.
in the paint too. They're not.
Yeah.
They can shoot the ball. They're not. They're no Penn State. They're no, whoever else. But I think Purdue, outside of Edie, 110+ point per game scorer in Fletcher Lawyer, who's shot very poorly all year. Without him, I don't think they do much at all. Like you said, versus Penn State, very easy to take advantage of the non-Edie minutes.
Yeah.
And Memphis, I think will be able to take them out of the game.
Yeah, I think if you're a Purdue fan, you should be watching that game very closely, because if they play FAU, I think they've got a pretty good shot to move on, but Memphis is going to give them trouble.
Mhm.
I have them beating Memphis or FAU, whoever comes out of that, but that's going to be a tough matchup. I don't really know how he's going to perform getting defended by such size. It's going to be interesting to watch.
I think Edie, phenomenal player. And I think, in my humble opinion, he's carrying the boys. Edie's putting the team on his back. I'm just going to say it now. I have him in the finals. I have Purdue in the national championship game because of Zach Edie.
Now, do they
Trent,
win?
Do they?
Trent, that's a little
I'll save
ridiculous.
that for later.
Trent.
I'll save that for later.
That's a little
I'll
ridiculous.
save that for later.
may I ask, do you have Zach Edey as your tournament player of the year if you're so gung-ho on him?
Yes.
You would have to.
Yes.
Purdue makes the finals. I sure hope he wins Player of the
Oh,
Year.
he will.
Yeah.
This is not a question.
So-
So if they make it to the finals, he is a lock.
So if not Purdue, who is your fraudulent team?
I know Bryson's not gonna like this pick. I know it might not be popular, but I have Texas. I'm just not. I'm not feeling the Texas love. I don't have them going. Let me see where I don't have them going particularly far in the tournament. I have them going. I had them beating Penn State in the round of 32, and then I have them bowing out to my Cinderella team, which I will leave for later, in the Sweet 16. I think Texas is. I pulled it up earlier. Let me find this for a second. I apologize for my delay.
Well, Trent, I'm gonna have to say while you're pulling up, I completely disagree with you.
Me too.
And that's fine.
I have Texas in my Final Four.
I have Texas in my Final Four.
Yeah.
I think Texas stats don't really jump off the page per se, but in big games they show up. In clutch time in these close games, their stats are miles better than most teams. I think Texas, they beat Kansas not once but twice now, who's a 1 seed. I think Texas is just going to get it done.
Now, I will admit I'm not a huge college basketball guy. Not my forte. But what I do have to say is what does scare me here is when I'm looking at their field goal percentage here at 52 in the country.
Mhm.
For a number 2 seed, I would expect that to be a lot higher. Going into the tournament, they're gonna have to make a ton of shots.
Will they?
I mean, you would hope.
They held Kansas under 60 multiple times this season. They're one of the best defensive teams in the country, and they've shown throughout the season. There's been games where they can't really score, but their defense is made up for that.
I think, personally, not big on him. I respect your opinion. I'll give it to him. This guy watches the most college basketball I've ever seen in my entire life. And if he has him, I'm not gonna argue with him. However, my fraudulent pick.
I just think when Texas needs a clutch stop, they show up. And
Yep.
when they need a clutch bucket, they show up. I think they're just the most clutch team
And
in the tournament.
not even in the clutch too. We were watching the TCU game last Friday in the Big 12 tournament, and with 10 seconds or 10 minutes into the game, it was like 13-13.
Yeah.
Texas defensively is just unlike any other team in the
Yeah,
tournament.
Texas is one of the rare teams you'll see that can go scoreless for like 5 minutes, and their other team is only on like a 4-0 run. They're just incredible on the defensive side of the ball, and that's just going to carry them. If their offense fails, they know they have a strong defense to lean back on.
Right. So Nate, I'll move on to you. Who is your fraudulent team of the year?
My fraudulent team of the year is Indiana. I have Indiana losing their first game to Kent State.
Me too.
I think Indiana, fine team. They just drew terribly against maybe the best mid-major in the country. Kent State has been under the radar the whole season, and I think the MAC is known for producing these teams that can upset these big squads. Indiana's going to come into this game, they're ready to go and play in the tournament, but they're going to underlook Kent State. Indiana's got, they've got their one guy. I'm blanking on his name right now, but he's phenomenal. But Kent State's going to be able to take that away. They're a little undersized, but I don't think that'll matter. I think their offense will run away with the game.
I'll tell you what, I do have Kent State beating Indiana in the first round too.
Yeah.
I think that's one of my upsets. Definitely a game to watch. Should be a good one.
Yep.
Should be a good.
But Indiana, they had a pretty solid season. I just don't think they can get it done this year.
Right. And now, on the other hand, there's always going to be a Cinderella team. Like I said, there is St. Peter's, who beat Kentucky last year. There's Oral Roberts, who beat Ohio State 2 years ago. Trent, there is a glass slipper on the stairs. We know it's Cinderella's. Who is Cinderella this year?
Now, I know Nate is going to love this pick. I have the Pittsburgh Panthers as my Cinderella team, going to the Elite Eight.
The Elite Eight.
The Elite Eight.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. So,
obviously they have to get out their playing
Yes.
game. Beat Iowa State.
Mhm.
After that, you think they beat Texas? They are
yes,
your fraudulent
they are
team
my
of the year.
fraudulent team.
And I guess that matches up well. Your
Yeah, it does.
Cinderella
It does.
fraudulent
Yeah.
team. Do you think they get by Xavier?
Fun fact: I have Xavier out before that, I don't even have them playing Xavier. I have them playing.
You have them playing Kennesaw State?
Yup. Kennesaw State. Big
Oh.
upset. I'm
Wow.
feeling
Oh.
it. I can
Wow.
feel it coming.
That's a bold
That is a
prediction right
bold
there.
prediction. And then I have Pitt, obviously upsetting Texas as they are my fraudulent team before inevitably falling to number 1 seed Houston in the Elite Eight. I just don't think
Okay.
they have the firepower to get that one done.
Okay.
But as you said, Pitt had a phenomenal year. They got a little cold towards the end, but I'm hoping with this playing game they can get themselves going right before the tournament and make a little run.
Maybe a spark of energy for Pitt.
Exactly.
As
Yeah.
they move into the tournament.
No,
here.
Pitt's gonna need to. They're in an iceberg right now. They've been shooting terribly in their last couple games here. They're just gonna need to find themselves like they were in the middle of the season when they looked like they were gonna be at the top of the ACC. I think they can find themselves in the tournament. They have one of the I think maybe the oldest team in the tournament. I mean, everyone's seen the stat. They're older than the Thunder.
Yeah.
That to me is still crazy, but I think their veteran leadership, I think the fact that they just have a whole wide range of scores. The only thing I'm worried about is the paint, but I think they're just going to be able to outshoot some teams.
And Nate, I'll move on to you here. Who is your Cinderella team?
I was thinking about this a lot. I was between two teams. I was between Kent State, which I already brought up, but I decided to go against that. I'm going with Charleston Cougars. Their first matchup against San Diego State. I don't think San Diego State's that good. I'm really confused how they're a 5 seed this year.
Yeah, there are a lot of teams under the 5 seed that I'm looking at that.
Yeah.
A good number of teams that I
Yeah.
think should be over San Diego State.
Charleston is 31-3. They started the year. They were undefeated for what felt like forever. They had a little skid, but I think they're back now. They're a great shooting team. Their offensive and defensive metrics are out of the charts now. They did play in a terrible conference.
Yeah.
There's nothing you can argue against that. But I think their game's going to translate well against these teams, and they're going to play San Diego State, right? And then the winner, Virginia and Furman. I have Virginia. And I think they're I think they're about the same level as Virginia, and I think they're going to be able to edge out Virginia. They just run into the Mack truck that is Alabama, and they're probably going to get killed by Alabama. But the fact that I think they're going to make it to that Sweet 16 is what has them as my Cinderella team.
Right. Now, you bring up Virginia not being too good.
Yeah.
I think that's a great segue because my Cinderella team is the Furman Paladins. The Furman Paladins are going to the Sweet 16, and like you said, losing to Bama. Because I do have Bama going far, but Furman this year, they have Virginia in round 1. I think definitely an overrated team. Definitely a beatable team for Furman.
I agree.
Then round of 32, they have Charleston or San Diego State. Now, Charleston, like you said, I agree. They could definitely upset San Diego State. But in a matchup with them and Furman, I think Furman does take it.
I don't know. I have to disagree with you on that one.
Furman, great three-point shooting team. Great versatility in all their scores. They have 4 guys over 10 points per game, all with good size, athleticism, and versatile scorers. Shooting great from the field. One of the best offenses. They distribute the ball well. I think they can make a run to the Sweet 16 this year.
And I'm going to reiterate why I like Charleston so much. Is Charleston is a top 10 3-point shooting team in the country. Now, they are not very good at shooting threes. They're not even worth mentioning in their 3-point percentage, but what they make up for is they are first in the country in offensive rebounds and tied for second in the country in rebounds a game. They have a lot of size. They have a lot of players that I think are just going to show up in the big dance. I think they're going to give San Diego State, and I think Virginia could very well be Furman. I love that pick from you, but I just think they're going to show up those teams, and then it will be a dogfight with Bama.
Yeah. Now that'll definitely be a great round of 32 game, assuming our 2 Cinderella teams make it, which they will.
I'll be watching that game from start to end. That will be an amazing game.
Lock it in, Charleston, Furman.
Guaranteed. Put it in your bracket now, actually.
Yeah. Peter, we'll finish off with you. Who is your Cinderella team?
Now, I've had a very, very tough time deciding who I think is going to be Cinderella this year. And to be honest, I don't specifically have one. However, I think out of all the teams that could be considered Cinderella, I like Providence.
Okay.
I really like Providence. I think they're a very good shooting team. They're very efficient, and they have a very quick pace to their offense, which I think can very well get them by some good teams. And they're about above average in defensively, but I think their offense can make up for that. And in that aspect alone, I do like Providence, but I'm not too confident they get to the Sweet 16. Out of all of my upset teams, I think they have the highest ceiling to get there.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, I like Providence as a team. It's just like Oral Roberts, they kind of got screwed with their bracket. First round they're playing Kentucky. They can beat Kentucky, I think. That's a winnable game for them.
Kentucky's hot, but Providence is a good team to face, I guess.
However, after that, you're playing Kansas State, most likely, assuming Montana State doesn't upset. And then from there, you got either Michigan State, USC, or Marquette.
Yeah.
I don't think they win those 3 games straight.
Oh, yeah, no. I don't think so either. Something about them is telling me they have the ceiling to do it. They have the potential.
Sure.
I don't know that I don't think it's going to happen, but I don't. It's hard for me to pick a Cinderella team this year.
And that's all March Madness is. It's just gut feelings because
Pretty much.
in reality, we know nothing.
Yeah.
We'll all be wrong.
Oh,
So-
for sure.
Oh,
This,
right.
Yeah.
this episode will age horribly in
Except-
about 1 week.
Except for when Texas loses in the round of 32.
Except for when
without their
Texas-
genius.
Except for when Texas makes it to the Final Four.
And then
Well, against
I'll wear it.
Charleston.
Don't get me against Charles. Actually, I've done it in the round of 16.
Actually, we'll move on to the Final Four now. I'll start out with this one. My Final Four teams, from the South, I have Alabama. I think they're the best team in the nation. More on that later. From the East, you like your Providence pick? I got Kentucky. I was debating, a lot of teams, honestly. Oral Roberts, Duke, Kansas State, Kentucky, even Marquette. But I think, at the end of the day, I think Kentucky's going to get it done. A fairly experienced team. I think Kentucky's going to do well in their bracket. A tough bracket, like you mentioned.
Yeah.
Like Nate mentioned, the East is arguably the best bracket here.
The East is tough.
The East is very tough, but I think Kentucky comes out of the East. On the other side, out of the Midwest, I do have Texas, and they're going all the way to the Final Four. And from the West, the team we haven't talked about yet is Kansas. Returning 2 starters from last year, plus freshman Grady Dick, great shooter.
Great shooter.
Great shooter.
Love that white boy.
So my Final Four matchups: Alabama versus Kentucky, and then Texas versus Kansas. My championship, I have Alabama versus Kansas.
Wow.
Like we had mentioned, Texas beat Kansas twice earlier in the year, played very well versus them. It's tough to beat a team 3 times in a year in college, and for that reason, I have Kansas going to the finals.
And let me hop on this, Bryson. I'll do my Final Four now because we have some similarities here.
Do we?
Out of the South, I got Bama. I think they're
Alright.
the best team in the nation.
They are.
Out of the East, I got Duke. I was laboring between Marquette, Oral Roberts, and Duke, but I just thought I'd ride the hot hand, the experience that is Duke. Out of the Midwest, I got Texas. And out of the West, I was between Gonzaga and Kansas, but I went Kansas. Now, in that matchup, I have Texas beating Kansas.
Okay.
Because I just think the way that Texas matches up with Kansas, Bill Self, phenomenal coach, he just can't outplay the way Texas plays against them. They just lock down Jalen Wilson.
Mm-hmm.
I know it's hard to beat a team 3 times, but I think if one team's going to do it, it's going to be the team that shows up clutch time and time again, and I think it's going to be Texas.
I'll tell you what, I do have written down here, that is the game of the tournament.
Oh,
Texas
for
versus
sure.
Kansas. That will be the game of the tournament. I think either team loses to Alabama in the finals.
I disagree. I have Texas winning.
Texas all the way.
I have Texas taking it home this year.
I was considering it, but at the end of the day, I think Alabama, best team in the nation. I think they have they're just a well-rounded team. Everything's going for them.
I agree.
I think they got
Bama's
it this
great.
year.
I think Bama's great. Trent, I hated your Cinderella, your fraudulent pick simply because I was waiting to unveil that I think Texas can shut down any team in the nation. I like Alabama a lot. I think they're the best team, but I just don't think they can beat a defense like Texas. I think Alabama, they've got probably the best player in the tournament on their team, but I just don't think they can outdo Texas. I think it'll be a close game. I think it'll be a shot-for-shot game. but I have Texas coming out on top.
Trent?
Okay, so my Final Four, little nutty. All right, so I'm gonna start actually with the Midwest West matchup, as I feel like that's more reasonable. I have
Okay.
number 1 Houston getting out of theirs. I do have Kansas falling to number 4 UConn, and
Okay.
UConn is making their way to the Final Four. Truthfully, I think UConn for a long time has been considered more of a women's basketball school. And I mean, there's nothing
They've
wrong.
won many
Yeah, nothing
championships.
wrong with women's
Nothing
basketball.
wrong. Nothing
wrong with women's basketball. But I feel like it's the men's turn. I feel like they got a chance to make a run this year.
They are solid this year.
And
They are a team that can knock out Kansas.
And
And you know,
the thing is with UConn is they started off so high. They were the 1 seed in the country at one point, undefeated for a very long time. Had a big skid that destroyed their ranking. But in their last 11 games, they've won 9 of them. I could see them very well bouncing back and doing very well in this tournament.
now with the other side, obviously, you know I have Purdue, as we discussed that earlier. Now here's the big upset. Okay, now realistically, I think Alabama's the better basketball team.
Right.
But for March Madness bracket fun shenanigans, I have my boys out of the Big East Conference, phenomenal basketball conference, may I say, the Creighton Blue Jays.
Wow.
The Creighton
Going
Blue
to the
Jays.
Final Four. Now, if you took a look over at Creighton, in the Big East, they came in third, falling behind Xavier, Marquette. They still came out with a 21-12 record this year.
Well,
Very
like
respectable record.
UConn, you know, another team that started off very hot. One of my favorites for the tournament for a long
Yeah.
time. Beginning of the season, I really loved Creighton, but you know, just kind of fell off towards the end there. So hey, maybe they can relive the magic. We'll see.
And I mean, if you look at the Big East Conference, stacked conference. I mean,
Yeah.
you have the top 5 teams in the conference all over 20 wins, and then you got St. John's with 18 and 15. They just didn't have a great conference record this year. Realistically, I think Creighton competed in their conference, which is one of the best conferences in the country. I think when they get to the tournament, they have a chance to make some noise. And again, I would be surprised if they win that game against Bama. But for bracket fun, and I mean, like, let's be honest, I think everyone knew Alabama was going to be one of the teams to beat in this tournament.
Right.
Let's have a little fun. I think that's
Yeah.
fair.
Creighton Blue Jays, Final Four, and for your national championship.
As you know, I do have Purdue, and I had Houston beating UConn, with
Okay.
Purdue beating Houston in the national championship game.
Peter.
I got Alabama coming out of the South. I got Marquette coming out of the East.
Okay.
On the other side, I got Houston coming out of the Midwest, and I got Gonzaga coming out of the West. I got Bama, and I got Zaga. I think Bama wins it all. Now,
Can I ask you about that matchup? What do you like about Gonzaga and Alabama there in the finals?
so Gonzaga, right? They got the best offense in the nation statistically, averaging about 88 points a game, which is that's a lot of points for
That's a lot
college
of
ball.
points.
They've very good, very good shooters, and they have a pretty good defense. They can turn the ball over when they can get turnovers. Sorry, when they need it. Alabama, I mean, they've been so dominant. You know, it's hard to look at a team like that and say they're not winning at all.
Right.
As soon as I saw how they performed against Texas A&M and how they did this season, they've just been my team. I feel like Bama's taking it all.
Right. I like that pick. I had Bama
Reasonable.
too. Yeah, very reasonable. I thought all of our picks were pretty reasonable. I didn't have too much to disagree about.
Yeah. I could see it all happening.
Right.
Especially the Creighton pick. That's my
I
personal
could, but I could see Creighton doing pretty well.
Yeah, honestly, like I'm not even joking. Like I think that they could realistically.
No,
I think
yeah.
Elite 8 is very reasonable. I think they probably fall to Bama, but for fun,
Yeah.
Creighton Final Four appearance.
Yeah, I think we had all agreed, you know, Alabama's going to be very good. But overall, a lot of parity in this year's tournament.
Oh, for sure.
It's
Maybe-
it's anyone's game.
Maybe the
Yeah.
weakest 1 seeds we've ever seen.
That's true. That's true. I don't think, you know, like I said, anyone's game. Anyone's game this year. So I think we will leave it at that. Thank you guys for watching. Make sure to follow us wherever you're listening. And follow our Instagram and TikTok at Prime Hoops. That's Prime Hoops with a Z. And we'll be back next week with a new episode Monday at 4 p.m. Eastern. Thank you guys for watching.